This just in, MAAC Player and Rookie of the Week have been announced. JJ, I think the Rookie of the Week is pretty obvious. We had 6 players in contention, at least from our list, for Player of the Week. I'm curious where you think both awards are going.
No, we know where Freshman of the Week is. It's Kavere Kennedy. He had such a great week. He's been playing great all year. We kind of knew it was going to be him.
And we'll talk about this. This will be a separate segment, by the way.
Yes, we'll talk fully on some players. But for Player of the Week, there were a few great players this week. But again, I think it's the clean sweep. I think it's Kavere Kennedy getting Player of the Week and Rookie of the Week as well. I think he sweeps the board and gets it done.
Who else was in contention in your mind?
I think Gavin Dottie was definitely up there, along with Jaden Winston, who had a very good week as well. But I think Kennedy has run away with it.
Do you think the upset from Sacred Heart over St. Peter's will propel Anquan Hill? I know you're going to go Kennedy. Do you think that had any play in the decision?
A little bit, yes. I think that was definitely big, having an upset that big and being the lead player for your team doing that. I think that is huge. But honestly, just seeing the stats and seeing how good Kavere Kennedy did, also getting 2 wins as well, like that's just huge, especially as a freshman. And his stats lined up to everyone else's. He just clears the board for me.
Okay, we will stop the suspense. Kavere Kennedy did sweep the board. He won MAAC Rookie of the Week and MAAC Player of the Week. Now, we talked about Anquan Hill. We talked about Sacred Heart. They had a great week, sweeping St. Peter's and Ryder, officially eliminating the Bronx. What have you seen from the Pios?
Anthony Latina, great head coach, 13
he
years
really is.
With Sacred Heart.
He's so intense. I love his intensity. We at Marist always talk about John Dunn, how he screams from start to finish. They had a 45-point victory against Iona, the largest D1 win in program history. And I joked, Dunn's not even happy because he's just screaming throughout the entirety of the game. Anthony Latina is basically the same way with the Pios.
And again, we saw it firsthand in Fairfield watching the game. Those two were just screaming the entire time. It's not like they were screaming at an official or each other. It was just
at their team.
Yeah, they were just screaming.
I like what both of them do. They scream at their team, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, whatever kind of basketball mechanics they want to talk about. But every time someone comes off the court, even if they had a really bad stretch, like 3 terrible minutes, he'll always give him a high five and slap him on the back. Hey, you're good. We'll get him next time.
And that's a huge lift up, especially with a coach always yelling and stuff. Like, sometimes some players might take it the wrong way, but he does a great job at kind of combating that and being like, hey, no, that was good. I think he yells just so that he knows his players can hear his voice, because you can definitely hear his voice sitting in that gym.
Both of them.
You can hear those pretty prominently, but again, such a great head coach. He's done a great job with Sacred Heart these past few years. And really, we've talked about it so much, how exciting and how much we love this Sacred Heart team. Anquan Hill is so good. 9 games with 20-plus points. He leads the MAAC with 17.8 points per game. But not only that, the Sacred Heart team plays at a very fast pace of play, and that allows them to score a lot, but also on the defensive end, cause a lot of turnovers, because it kind of forces their opponents to play a lot quicker and make more mistakes, and that kind of allows them to get all of these turnovers. They're 3rd in the MAAC with turnovers per game defensively. So this Sacred Heart team, really, really competent and a very good group of guys, and it seems like they really like each other. So their record does not actually show how good they really are.
And I think that's so obvious based on their 5-game win streak and the fact that Hill was hurt for a while. If you want to catch Dunn and Latina, go at it. That'll be in less than a week from when this drops. It'll be this coming Sunday on the 22nd, right here in Poughkeepsie, New York. Place that's close to Poughkeepsie, New Rochelle, a little bit south of here. You go down 684, 84, a little bit on 95, and you get to New Rock City, where the Iona Gales are. They beat Canisius, expected, but then they traveled to Niagara. They did not complete the Buffalo sweep. I think this is a terrible, terrible loss.
It's really bad. I think the best way to put it is this is kind of the classic Iona team in a sense. Very talented, super, super talented group of guys.
Only team with direct NIL money. They put so much effort and money into their basketball program because, like most other MAAC schools, they don't have a football team. So their big focus, their sport is men's basketball, and it's unlike a Quinnipiac or Sacred Heart as football, but unlike a Quinnipiac that puts a lot of money into their hockey program, there's no hockey program with Iona. Iona's biggest sport, their bread and butter, is hoops.
So that's kind of the thing. They have a ton of talent. I'll go back to it. I'm a Big East guy. You know that. You're a St. John's. You're a St. John's fan. At the start of the year with St. John's, you kind of saw this disconnection between the lineup and not bonding well because they had so many transfers coming in. They went out and bought players, and
I think Xavier is a better example of that. There's only one guy that returned for Xavier, and that was Malik Messina Moore, but he hadn't played a single game for the Musketeers all year.
And that's kind of the thing. You kind of see this. You have all of these guys coming together from all these different schools. They don't have that experience, that 4-year experience that some of these smaller mid-major schools have. Iona went out. They bought a bunch of players. I think they only had like 4% of their scoring returning from last year.
I believe they had the least in the MAAC, yes.
It's a big disconnect, so those players need time to kind of figure it out and mend together, and I think it's taking them a little longer to do that. St. John's finally picked it up. They mended together. So did Xavier as well. But I think it's just taking this Iona team a little longer to bond together. But again, super, super talented. CJ Anthony, very capable scorer.
So good.
Same with Sabali. Those two are so great together. So this Iona team, yes, they did drop a big game. Yes, they are kind of lacking at 7-9 in conference play. But again, kind of like that Sacred Heart team, they can be super dangerous. They were leading the MAAC in points per game the first 2 months of the season until they played Marist in that blowout win that Marist had. But again, this team is bonded, just has to get bonded better together. But come MAAC time, I think that'll start to pick up. They can play very well, and they could do some damage in these next few weeks.
Now, that is if they make the postseason. Why was it such a bad loss? Not necessarily because of the game. It was a 2-point game, and like you mentioned earlier, it came down to a goaltending call. It wasn't a bad loss basketball-wise. It was a bad loss in the MAAC standings. Because Niagara beat Iona, they remain alive for the postseason with that upset victory and the Fairfield loss to St. Peter's. Niagara also has a way that they can be eliminated, but it's highly unlikely on Friday because it requires 2 things to happen as opposed to 1 with every other team that wants to clinch a postseason berth. Now, the Purple Eagles, they trail the Gales by 3 games with 4 to play, so it's still a tough mountain to climb, but they split the season series, which allows Niagara to earn the tiebreaker contingent upon how that final standings shape out, like we mentioned earlier. But the way Merrimack's been playing, you assume that Merrimack is going to be, hey, if you beat Merrimack, you're getting the tiebreaker because you assume they're going to win the regular season conference tournament, right? And with that, Niagara finishes with the Warriors. So they would, if they beat them, have that tiebreaker. Iona also dropped 2 spots in the MAAC standings to 10th. They're now half a game out of Sacred Heart / Manhattan. And yeah, they possess the tiebreaker over the Pios. So they just need to worry about Niagara that's creeping up on them. Both play Ryder, the worst team in the conference. Both play Merrimack, the best team in the conference. Iona also has St. Peter's on the slate at home and traveling to Riverdale from Manhattan. Niagara visits Hamden, Quinnipiac, and will travel to the Mount.
I think something to highlight with this Niagara team is the fact that their last game of the year is against Merrimack. Something you might want to look out for if this Merrimack team locks down the 1 seed and locks down the regular season championship. They might sit their starters so they don't risk injuries. That'll open the door for Niagara to actually win that game.
Can you imagine? And I think I'm rooting for this personally.
This could cause so much just madness. It could just be insane. Obviously, this Niagara team will still have to beat Mount St. Mary's. They'll have to beat Ryder. They'll have to beat Quinnipiac. 3 pretty hard games, especially with Quinnipiac still fighting for those buys and fighting for those wins. But if you really look at it, this Merrimack team, that last game of the year, that might be a game where they just put their bench players in and let Niagara do what they want, and it could cause some real madness at the end of this bracket.
It will cause a lot of controversy for sure within the conference. Should we be sitting these teams? Do they have the right, et cetera, et cetera? But I don't know. I think I'm rooting for this, especially because it's very possible. That's why I mentioned the remaining slate. It's possible that this plays out. I think I'm a Purple Eagles fan, honestly, right now.
Me too. It's not even because I dislike Iona or anything.
No, I have no hate against Iona.
It's just because if this happens,
I want to see the storyline.
Insane. This would be awesome. Like we saw it. Iona could lose out. They just lost to Niagara. They could lose out. Niagara could win out. Like, this could cause so much madness, and it's not even that I dislike or like one team. It's just I want to see just craziness happen. I just want to see the most random things going down, and that's what you got to love about basketball. Anything can happen.
Basically, what needs to happen is Iona needs to win one more game. Niagara needs to lose another game because it's still a very steep mountain to climb. But I think if Niagara wins out, there's a very, very real possibility that they get in. Let's turn it over to their Buffalo counterpart in Canisius. They lost against Iona. They lost against Manhattan. They're officially eliminated with that second loss. And though they were trailing Iona, or are trailing Iona, I should say, by 4 with 4 to go, the Gales' 2 victories in head-to-head play gives them that initial tiebreaker, officially eliminating the Golden Griffs. And down to Lawrenceville, Ryder lost against Mount St. Mary's, and then at Sacred Heart, they are also officially eliminated with that second loss, 5 games back with 4 left to play.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, Canisius. These two teams, they had pretty rough years. Canisius ending the season, or still going with an 11-game losing streak. But there were some positives that you could take from this year for both teams, especially Canisius. They beat Fairfield, Sacred Heart, and Manhattan. They have some pieces that might return next year, might not. Kahil Singleton, he's averaging 13.5 points per game. He's a junior. So again, yes, they missed the tournament, but also the MAAC is so competitive that they could have an off year this year, and next year they could be back on top. Like, you never know what's going to happen.
Look at St. Peter's.
Exactly.
That's the perfect example. St. Peter's didn't make the tournament last year.
Yeah.
And now they're the 2 seed, and with the exception of Merrimack, they're the favorites.
And they were preseason 11th. Like, it's anything can really happen, and that's why this Canisius team, yes, they could drop their heads on this year, but they also have to look forward to the future. Like, both of these teams, Ryder, Canisius, they just got to look to the future, be like, what can we do differently next year? Obviously, they still have the rest of the year to finish out. They still have some games. You could bring morality back up. You could bring chemistry back up. You could do all of that stuff in these next 3 games. But again, there's a lot of positives. There's stuff to look at. There's stuff to work on, and that's what they're going to do this offseason.